From just the first trailer alone, I knew Princess Peach Showtime was a challenging game for the developers to create. The whole concept of the game invites a bunch of challenges that each have to be tackled. In this video, we will take a look at those challenges and how the developers overcame them to create this game. Welcome to Game Design Review, where we take a look at games from the developer's point of view. The main concept of Princess Peach Showtime is that Peach has many different forms that change how the game is played. There is Ninja Peach, which turns it into a stealth game, or Detective Peach, where you have to solve a mystery, and many more. It's a lot of work to create all these gameplay styles, but that's not the main problem. The sole existence of changing gameplay styles creates a few issues. I first want to mention two problems that this creates, but that the developers solved in the same way. It has been scientifically proven that humans are really bad at switching tasks. To quote a research paper, Gersel discovered that the amount of time it takes for the brain to react is slower when it alternates between different tasks than when it repeats the same tasks. This of course also applies to games. Your own performance will decrease if you constantly switch back and forth between different games. And this does sound like it would be a bad idea to have a game that is constantly changing how it is played. But that's not really something that happens in Princess Peach Showtime. So how did the developers fix it? Well, I first want to look at another problem that shares the same solution as our task switching problem. Given the game is basically just many different games in one, it will be a lot harder for less experienced players to learn the game. As less experienced players haven't played as many games, it will be a lot harder to learn each new game. Not to mention, learning a game that is just many different games like Princess Peach Showtime would be even harder. Nintendo obviously doesn't want to make any of their games unappealing to less experienced players. Especially considering one of their main target audiences is children, who tend to be less experienced gamers. Now then, how did the developers fix the task switching problem and made the game more accessible to newer gamers? Well, it's surprisingly simple actually. All they did was to simplify the controls down to these two buttons. And yeah, of course you move with the control stick, but actual actions are all handled with just A and B. Of those two, A is always jump, and B is the gameplay style's special ability. I think it's fun that I've seen many criticize the game for only using A and B, but it's actually what saved the game. Now, how does this fix both the previous issues? Let's start with the task switching issue. As we know, switching tasks, or in this example switching the game's gameplay styles from level to level, will decrease our cognitive ability. But we aren't really switching anything when the controls are this simplified. We still have our jump on A, and the only new thing we actively have to do is use the special ability on B. This greatly reduces the change in tasks we are doing, and as such helps with the task switching problem. How the developers made the game more accessible for newer players is mostly the same. If the newer players don't have to fully relearn the game and always use the same basic controls, then it isn't like learning 10 different games in one anymore. This fix did help the game a lot, but it would also create a new problem of its own that has to be fixed. Before we move on to the next problem, if you want to see more videos like this one, go ahead and transform that subscribe button. Given the gameplay styles have been simplified down to the simplest they can be, this can quickly make the forms feel repetitive when the only real difference is one button. What makes this so fascinating is that it wasn't fixed by one solution, but by many small ones that you never would have thought of. The biggest of these solutions has to be the autorunner sequences. In Princess Peach Showtime, there are quite a few level sequences where you will automatically go forward. In its core, they all aren't so different, but they are just slightly different enough so that they give the gameplay styles an extra unique feeling. For example, there is the Ninja Peach autorunner, which is literally a 2D autorunner with parkour elements. Cowboy Peach has the sections where you ride a horse and can only jump and move from side to side. Last I want to mention Dashing Thief Peach's glider sequence. Probably the most unique, as you have to glide through the skies. Wait a moment, is that the 1000-year door? But yeah, those were just a few of the Autorunner sections. The Autorunner sections do offer part of the solutions for gameplay styles starting to feel repetitive, but that's not where it ends. Let's look at some of the other ways the developers solved this issue. This next part is just heavy speculation on my part, but I actually believe this is what happened at Nintendo. So then, I think that Patissier Peach only exists because the developers knew the gameplay styles had the potential to get repetitive due to simplification. My reasoning for this is that Patissier Peach is very different from other gameplay styles. If you press B during regular gameplay, it's the only form where nothing happens. This is because Patissier Peach works more as a minigame collection. The B button is only used for the different minigames. Because of this, Patissier Peach gives the game a really new and fresh feel, but sadly this doesn't last for long. The biggest issue of the minigame collection that is Patissier Peach is that there are only 2 minigames. Playing those 2 minigames over and over again got boring when you played them too much. Even though it might have gotten boring fast, Patissier Peach did bring some change into the different Peach forms, which helped it in feeling less repetitive. Now then, there is one last fix the developers did to make the different gameplay styles not get repetitive after being simplified. To make up for the different gameplay styles all only having one unique ability tied to a button, Nintendo gave them passive abilities. This is definitely most noticeable with Ninja Peach, which happens to be my favorite gameplay style in the game. When you first transform into Ninja Peach, you directly notice how fast she is. But that's not all, you can also wall jump, which the developers conveniently put right next to where you get the transformation. So the first thing you have to learn is that Ninja Peach can wall jump. But there is even more. If you walk toward a wall, Ninja Peach will hide so that enemies can't see her. The same happens if you walk into tall grass. Overall, I would say that Ninja Peach is the best designed gameplay style in the entire game. There is just so much going on. There could really be a full-on Ninja Peach game. That's how good it is. Next up, I wanna talk about something I didn't really like much in the game, but which has a surprising turn of events. If you want to 100% the game, there are quite a few collectibles in each level. The problem is that when you advance in the level, you can't go back to the previous areas. This means that if you do miss a collectible, you will have to replay the entire level. If you still don't find it the second time around, you will have to replay it even more. One way to fix this would be to add chapters to the levels, so that you can select which part of the level you want to start. This would also work well thematically, as it's a theater theme. I don't think allowing the players to go back would consistently work, as the player often travels long distances you can't go back, like the Autorunner sections. The shocking part about the collectible issue is that I am sure the developers knew of this, but intentionally kept it in as it would help with a potential bigger problem. A game like Princess Peach Showtime with 10 different gameplay styles is a lot of work for the developers to do. It would take Nintendo quite a bit of resources to make each of the 10 different Peach forms. This is the reason the game has a relatively low amount of levels at only 30. I still think Nintendo did the best they could by making the levels somewhat long. But even then, it still helped quite a lot if players would have to replay levels. It was just too much effort to make 10 forms and a ton of levels. This is why Nintendo wants the players to miss collectibles and replay the levels. It gives the illusion of the game having more content than it actually does. Let's go onward and talk about the whole aesthetic of the game. The entire game takes place within a theater, and there is a big reason as to why. As we all know very well at this point, Nintendo makes the fun gameplay first, and after that comes the setting of the game. Nintendo wanted to make a game where the core gameplay consists of changing forms in each level. This would obviously make the character look different and be in different environments. For this kind of gameplay, A theater is really the perfect choice of setting. In a theater, there are many different plays that all tell different stories, have different characters, and have different environments. This is everything Princess Peach Showtime needed to fully sell the idea of different forms with different gameplay. Of course, Nintendo could have made it take place in the regular Mushroom Kingdom. It's a game in the Mario universe after all. Anything works. But they chose to put it in a theater because it was a perfect fit for the changing gameplay styles. It really gives a realistic explanation as to why Peach changes form. She's taking on different roles in a theater after all. And that also explains why each of the levels looks so different. Really good choice by Nintendo to set the game inside a theater. Now then, what do I think of Princess Peach Showtime? I must say that I really enjoyed the game. It was a lot of fun to play, and I gotta give huge props to the developers for making it work in the first place. This must have been a challenge to create. Is it a big blockbuster Nintendo game like Tears of the Kingdom? Definitely not, but it's still a very chill and fun experience. One thing I don't see discussed nearly enough is how this game helps introduce less experienced players to many new genres at once. It's simple enough, but it still shows off genres in a good way, especially Ninja Peach. I have never been a fan of stealth games, but Holy Ninja Peach was good, and kinda made me interested in trying out other stealth games. Now I want to ask all of you, what do you think of Princess Peach Showtime? Did you enjoy it? Did you maybe skip the game? Please tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. With that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll see ya in the next one.